I'm coming to you from the wilderness of Florida this time. So I'm not in my office taking a video of myself in my room in my house. I am here outside because the weather is just beautiful out here right now. It's probably cold everywhere else, but that's one of the benefits of living here in Florida. It's hot as hell most of the year, but this time of year it's freaking perfect. So anyway, I want to talk about the recent terrorist attack in Australia and the protests in Europe by Muslims in front of Christian churches, and what happened in Australia where they attacked some Jews. Uh, and the reason why this is happening, yes, what's happening in Gaza probably does play into this, but at its roots, it's actually envy. These Muslim people came to the West in search for a better place to live. They wanted to have a better place to live. And instead of integrating with that culture, they saw this culture, they got a chip on their shoulder, they got envious, and they got angry. And Islam doesn't promote individual thinking very well. In fact, at its core, the core tenet is submission, right? It's submission. So, it's the subjugation of the individual to a mythical being, and it's not conducive for looking around you. Look at what you got around you, and then build your concepts, build your understanding of the world on top of that. That's the case of all religions, but Islam is particularly very vigorous with this. And vigorous, is that the right word? They're more aggressive about it. Let's put it that way. So, you look at Muslim countries, on average, they tend not to do very well. There's a lot of corruption, whether it be in Saudi Arabia or whether it be in Iran with the corruption in that country. You got constant warfare. You got a lot of different groups professing their version of Islam or their ethnic group or whatever, their own separatist cause, and there's so many examples of that. And right next door, you have Israel. Now, Israel maybe is not a great example because they get a lot of aid from the United States, military and economic. But nonetheless, these other groups, Christian, Jews, whatever, these other groups are more economically successful on average than they are. And that's because sciences are promoted in these cultures more. They allow room for individual thinking, logical thinking. They allow people to question. They allow people to use their heads that they just can't do in Muslim countries. Your uh, science and technology is really just trying to copy what the West is doing. I mean, think about it. Is there anything that was significantly invented in the Middle East in the last 500 years? No. Now, a long time ago, they used to be the keeper of Western classical thought. You think about the Greek classics; they were kept in the Middle East by scholars in the Middle East during the medieval period, but that changed, and I think the Muslim world can get back to that. But right now, they want to tear down what they feel like they can't become. Instead of trying to build themselves up, instead of trying to say, what can I do to better myself? What can I do to um, integrate with something that I came to? They left the Middle East, come to the West, to try to integrate with the West, which I'm sure some of them have, but some of them have not. They want to, they want to, uh, you know, tear down the United States or Western Europe or Europe in general. They want to tear down Israel. Again, that's another story because of what's going on over there. But just in general, they want to attack Jews like they did in Australia. They want to protest in front of Christian churches during the Christian holiday and here in December. And it's because they are envious of the culture that they came to. Here they are, they go to a culture, they went away from theirs, went to theirs, and they're envious. They're at its very root, they're scared of that culture. It's dominant in their minds. It's living rent free. It's showing them that something different, something that they don't like, something that they've been conditioned not to like, is better than uh, in terms of results, than what they're able to produce. And so they have, I think, an identity crisis. And instead of looking at it like, okay, why is this? Let me think about this, which, the Islamic culture does not promote that kind of thinking. Instead, they want to tear it down. And that's what Islamic culture has become in the last 500 years. Now, that could change. They can get back to their roots that they did, hundreds of years ago. They can allow for individual thinking. Islam can reform itself. Perhaps they can learn a thing or two from the philosopher Aristotle. Take what you have in your environment and you build your understanding of the world from that. Instead of trying to start from a concept that you can justify, and try to justify the results around that. So, and that, by the way, is called rationalization. So, that's what's going on. It's driven by envy. It's driven because they're scared of what they feel like they're not good enough to become themselves.